just press go. Give me a second.
Oh, you just pressed go.
Just press go.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, all of that's not in
You
there.
got away with all of
Give me
that.
time to get all the inappropriate stuff out. Yeah, good to go. I'll leave you guys to it.
And Sam, when we finish, shall I just press a random button?
Yeah, so there's a little red button here.
A red button there.
And with this one, you're going to press that red button.
So 2 red buttons.
2 red buttons.
Right.
2 red buttons.
And then,
Done.
I'll
That's what
come
we should
back
call the
later and
podcast.
I'll- 2 red buttons.
It actually could be a good name for
Well,
a podcast.
we don't have a name.
2 red
I'll
buttons.
see you guys
All right.
later.
See you,
Cool.
mate.
See ya. All right. So,
Mate,
2 red buttons.
2 red buttons. Well, we haven't come up with a name for the podcast, and I have 2 red buttons I have to push to finish.
Yes, you do.
And you can press one when you're sick of me.
I'll press this one, and you can press the one on the
Okay.
camera. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Yeah.
Well, hey, welcome to the Leading Where It Matters podcast, the podcast for dads who lead. Not every dad's a lead. All dads are leaders.
In
Not-
some way.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
every
in
leader.
the home.
Exactly. Not every leader is a dad, but all dads are called to lead. And I'm with my mate, James. How are you, man?
Good. A little too close.
I've just kicked you in the knee.
Yeah, that's okay. It's a good way to start.
Well, this is our first podcast
Yeah.
together. So, bit of a training run. So it's great to have you here, man.
Yeah, it's good to be here. And what's been going on with you?
Well, I don't know, man. Do you reckon the whole world's gone balmy? I mean, just thinking about how angry and annoyed people are.
Yeah.
Have you? I've just heard lots of stories of people like road rage
Yeah.
incidents,
Yeah.
and I'm finding at work I'm having to spend more time engaging with people, like just on my normal morning walk.
Oh, that sucks, man.
It is. It's for me, you know. It's just like the opposite of who I am. I am a nice person. No, but
It's usually something that people say about you rather than
That's
about
right,
yourself.
yeah.
Exactly.
yeah, it's all lies. And that's the thing. I'm finding I'm just having to take a little bit extra time just to, and even at home, I think at the moment, my experience is that even though I feel like I'm nailing the leadership, people are still annoyed with me.
There's an edginess, eh?
Yeah.
What does it feel like you're nailing the leadership?
Oh, mate. It's just, I can teach you.
Thanks.
No, you know how you have those little
And
moments?
that's what this podcast is going to be about.
That's right.
Mike teaches leadership.
No. Do you know how you have those little moments where you get home, you're like, I've just nailed it, and then you just step into the chaos?
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but there is an edginess, eh? Like
Yeah.
people are just on edge, and I think it's almost as if people are carrying like a trauma that they don't even realize from 2 years of
Yeah.
being locked up and
So true.
and of not being able to do things that they might normally do, like travel.
Yeah.
People have had to deal with losing jobs and mandates and changes and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
There's just an edginess.
It really is. I was thinking about it actually in relationship to the government's approach to the medical system,
Yeah.
because
Well, we're straight into it, eh?
yeah,
This is right. Here we go.
Here we go. Well, so they in the news media this week they were talking about how a year ago the unions told the government and the medical people saying, "Hey, we're 4,000 nurses short."
Right.
Right? Did you see that?
No.
Right. Amazing. Right. So they were basically, and you can go back and see, but 4,000 we're 4,000 short. If you don't fix this, we've got come to next winter, we're gonna have a problem. So
Wow.
this winter, right?
Wow.
And so I think that's the problem with COVID. One of the many problems with COVID is that I suspect it was just such a big problem they didn't know how to fix it, and so they just ignored it.
Mm.
And I wonder whether, so we all feel like this, that we've just got these massive problems, and
Yeah.
and it's hard to know how to step into them and fix them. But
Yeah.
yeah, they've completely cocked it up.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's full on.
Do you know how many? I did a search. Do you know how many public servants they've employed last year? How many extra public servants
How
they've
many?
employed? 3,950.
Yeah. See, that sounds like a lot, but is it a lot? Is that the net increase?
That's a net increase. Yeah.
So they've had some leave, they've had some start, but they've net
Net
increase.
Yeah.
Is that a lot in the concept, like in the scheme of how many people?
I don't know. It probably isn't, but it was about that 4,000 number, and I thought maybe the hospitals might have appreciated the people there instead.
Yeah. Oh, so public servants don't include those sorts. of
No. These are people that are controlling
Oh, that sounds like quite a lot.
things.
Controllers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
It's crazy actually, because even just medically, like, was talking to my daughter yesterday, and which is good parenting.
You're having a medical talk with your daughter.
I was having a medical talk, and but no, she was saying that that yesterday at her school, a kid that was year 4 or 5, which I'm from the old school, so I think it's like,
I don't know what that is. Is it like
primary school, like, so not yet intermediate?
I think you take the year and you add it to 5 years of age when they start school.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Is she like 10?
So 10. Yeah. So Geneva's a little bit older, but yeah. So this kid was like maybe 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Got caught vaping in at school.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, right?
At 10.
At 10, and then I was looking at, like, so are you ready for Google knowledge?
Sure.
So in the 15 to 17-year-old range, there has been incredibly rapid growth in current and daily vapors. So current vaping has gone from 3.5% in 2018-19 to over 12% in 2020-2021. Wow. So in 1 year, they went from 3.5% to 12% of kids in the 15 to 17 age group are vaping, and from 2% to 6% that are vaping daily.
Wow.
Daily.
Wow.
So if I look at my son's school, right, which has got 2,000 students, it means like 240 kids are vaping at least, and 120 are vaping daily.
Yeah.
And that's a year ago. So if you increase it by the same kind of percentage, it could be like 13, 14% of kids are vaping now. So, like, and I don't really know much about vaping, but I assume it's pretty bad for your health as well.
Well, it can be completely nicotine free, but a lot of it can have.
Does it have other impacts though?
Yeah, if it's nicotine free, even it's still that there's some. The vapors don't often agree with some of the science, but it can. There's a thing that it can do to your lungs. It can kind of. A thing. It does a thing.
I've heard about that. I've heard about that. It can cause a disorder in your lungs or something.
Yeah, lung disorder.
Syndrome.
That's an LDS.
Yeah. Medical advice. But seriously, like, that sort of stuff is just becoming the new cigarettes, right? It's just spreading throughout school. How do parents engage into that space? Like, if this is something that you're, like, is it just as simple as like checking pockets for a vape, or and then if you find one, what do you do?
Yeah, and if you check it out, you can take it off them. Yeah. Because why are they vaping? And
why are they vaping?
Yeah, and so is it? Do you think that everyone's just anxious? As I said, people are angry and annoyed, and there's this heightened anxiousness that we all feel, and it overflows sometimes into what we do to try to cope.
Well, I was talking to a guy the other day, a friend of mine, Lex, and he said that he was talking about somebody who was smoking, and he heard this other guy walk up to him and go, like, "You don't want to smoke, man. You just want to breathe." Right. Like, and so sometimes I think there are people like that, right? Like they step outside for a cigarette or something, and they actually just, like, they're breathing, right? The stuff we should be doing. They're actually doing, but they just happen to be doing it with something really unhealthy going in, and and vaping's probably the same, but there is this pause in the day, in whatever you're doing, to breathe, and I wonder if people are just craving rest, craving breath.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading, about porn. I wasn't watching it at the time.
So that is a solid segue.
That's right.
Just nice and clear.
Yeah, but I think it's connected because the study was showing, it's not testosterone, but there's something in there's a hit that you get. There's the chemical in your body.
Oh, dopamine?
Dopamine.
Yeah.
And it was talking about the dopamine hit you get from porn and from a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
Of just like, hey, dessert's coming. You're thinking about the burger, the dopamine kicks up. Thinking about ordering the burger, the dopamine's up, and you start to eat the burger, and dopamine sort of goes up, and then it actually depletes. And I wonder whether in this with the heightened anxiety,
and it the amount of the thing that you need to get the same dopamine hit.
Yeah, it actually reduces. So the more addicted you are to this thing, really the less of an impact it has on your dopamine. Yeah. But I wonder whether there's I wonder if anyone studied that with vaping, whether there's actually this sense of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to vape, has a little bit of a dopamine hit, which helps offset some anxiety.
Yeah, I reckon
know?
it would, for sure.
Yeah.
And then I guess there's just the cool factor,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Well,
Because breathing doesn't look cool.
what do you all these kids are like, and the new addiction is kids are breathing.
Yeah.
They're doing all going outside and doing breathing
That's right.
exercises. Like, yeah, guys are going behind the bike sheds, being like, okay, well, we're going to do 3 seconds in
That's
and
right.
then 6 seconds out.
That's right. Oh, that's so sexy. Can you feel the dopamine?
No.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? That actually was really nice.
Hmm.
Do you do breathing exercises?
I try to breathe, but no, I don't. To be honest, I don't really think about it. I've been told it's a good idea.
I'll do it now. 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out. I'll count for you.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You peaked too early.
I did. I almost ran out of breath.
I was a little worried that you
I
might.
blew it out. I can see it needs a bit of practice, but it did feel relaxing.
It actually does, eh?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
so
good.
what I found out from a neuroscience perspective, I wasn't going to talk about this today.
Okay.
So this isn't even
No,
prepared.
you
but,
should do that.
But from a neuroscience perspective, is what happens is your lungs. You know how your breathing is automatic.
Mm.
So once you start thinking about it, it feels super weird because you're like, oh, breathe in, breathe out. But it's an automatic function, and so there's this part of your like basal ganglia, you know, like the most
The basal ganglia.
yeah,
Okay.
like the most the sort of most central, most primitive part of your brain,
Right.
Like they'd call
Okay.
it like lizard brain, you know, like the fight, flight, fright
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
So that part of your brain is the part of your brain that actually controls. There's a part of that controls your breathing.
Right.
So it just tells your breath to
Right.
in, out, you know. And so then what happens is if you get stressed, it's an automatic response. Your breathing gets shallower
Right.
and faster and
Yeah.
all of those sorts of things
Yeah.
automatically.
Yeah.
And so your breath and your brain are kind of in sync and you've got this kind of fight, flight, fright thing. But what happens is if you start breathing, like if you're feeling stressed and you actually start breathing slowly and deeply, then your conscious brain is controlling your lungs,
Yeah.
which kind of short circuits that part of your
Right.
basal ganglia, like short circuits that part of your brain
Yeah.
that is saying you're stressed,
Yeah.
that wants to fight or flight or fright.
Right.
And so you can like, it's like a moment where you take control and you tell this like automatic function in your body, no, I am okay. Like you may not think, I may not feel okay, I am okay.
Right.
And so you can actually like de-stress yourself,
De-stress, yeah.
which is pretty cool.
That's really cool. I wonder whether there is any dopamine part of that. There probably isn't, eh? It's probably...
There could be. I reckon there could be. I mean, I think any addiction, right? So, you know, because and there's better things than dopamine, right? I mean, endorphins and things like that you get from running. Maybe there's endorphins from breathing, you know, which are a little bit more sustainable, right?
You get it from sex.
Endorphins.
Yeah.
Right. And dopamine, I think.
That's what I mean. You get dopamine from sex.
Right.
And breathing. What were you thinking I was saying?
Actually, maybe you don't get endorphins. Maybe you get, because endorphins are like from exercise and stuff, eh? So I suppose it depends how long you're having sex for.
That's right. But carry on.
If it's more than 20 minutes.
If it's more than 20 minutes, you get dopamine.
Endorphins.
We changed it. Did I change it to endorphins?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, we've lost it.
And then adrenaline.
Yes,
so have you ever
right.
exercised till you get that taste of like blood or iron in your mouth?
Wow. Not healthy?
You haven't done that?
No.
Oh.
Is that the thing?
Well, I think that's when you get, so I'm way beyond my knowledge here. I think that's when you have like
I think all of us.
not testosterone. I think that's when you have adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like when you're exercising to the point where you stretch
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
And there's adrenaline, you taste like blood in your mouth.
Right.
That's how you know you've had good sex.
Okay. Oh, well, God. I'm going to keep going next time. Don't stop. Anyway. I think it's fair because I'm not going to blame my own urges. I'm going to...
Yeah.
It's science.
It's chemicals.
It's chemicals.
It's the chemicals.
Yeah. No, so I think going back, bringing it back, anxiety, kids, I guess there's a whole bunch more drug use. I guess the soft end of all of that is vaping.
Yeah. Do you kind of buy into the idea of gateway things like
I
that
think so.
vaping could get you into cigarettes and cigarettes could get you into marijuana and marijuana could get you into meth or whatever? Like, do you see that as like a building thing?
I would say so.
Mm.
And I think there must be some science around that because isn't cannabis like the gateway drug into?
They say that.
Yeah.
I think I've always wondered whether it is or not. You know, as more places make it legal, whether their other illicit drug use goes up or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. As a non-drug user,
Yeah,
I don't know, but yeah, I just wonder whether, in terms of helping our children, I think some conversations around, hey, it's okay to feel anxious at the moment. You know, that just being honest about that and actually expressing that. And I think we all do it. We pick up our phones. You know, how many hundreds of times a day do we pick up our phone because we're looking for that little bit dopamine hit, you know? And my kids have been calling me out on that recently, and we've been trying to focus on that, just spending some time as a family with, you know, just intentionality, intentionally having some time with no devices, but then allowing us all the freedom to go, hey, this is device time, just go and chill out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, because there is some connection that comes from that too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, totally.
there's so many people that I'm connected with that there's no way I would be connected with them anymore if it wasn't for technology.
Right.
You know,
How do you mean?
I've always been pretty bad at actually keeping in touch with people genuinely,
I see.
right? And
Yeah.
so them being on my Facebook means that at the very least I still feel like I have a connection with them. Like if I
Yeah.
see them on the street, I know what they look like now,
Yeah.
where, you know, even just that, whereas it would have been once upon a time I'd see them in the street, hadn't seen them in 5 years.
Yeah.
They'd changed a bit and I'd be like,
Yeah.
they kind of resemble someone I knew, but
Yeah.
is that someone I know? So I do appreciate the connections that it maintains.
Yeah. I mean, we've got at work, you know, I've got a team in Canada.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them for 2 years, and
Yeah.
I should be over there every 6 months, you know.
Yeah.
And so you're connecting, trying to connect as best you can still. But
Are you? What's the plan? Like, are you gonna? The world is opening up. Are you gonna get over there? And...
yeah, we'll get over there, and we'll continue just to grow that. But yeah, there's certainly nothing beats that being face to face, and yeah, man. So I think coming back, I just want to finish off with that anxiety whole topic. I think having conversations around, I think what people are looking for is strong leadership. I think what's happened is the world's a basket case. Tell me what you think. The world's a basket case, and they're looking for leaders to try to make the place better, and nobody is. Like the government's not. They probably think they are, and maybe you think they are, but it seems that they're not really.
Yeah.
Like they didn't deal with the hospital thing. They had a whole year to deal with it, so why not? And then we have that at work. I can walk around the business and find that people are upset and angry about stuff going on at home, stuff going on with the guys at work that they're working with, and they assume some stuff about me just because they're just pissed off with the world a little bit, right? And I can delegate. I don't know about you, but I'm not a very nice person, so I delegate the niceness to other people. I think leaders often have some other leaders in the business that are providing the glue, that are picking up what people are putting down, and I tend to rely on them heavily. And I think what I've had to do at home and at work is actually to be more engaged in what people are feeling, because they're looking for leaders that actually are listening. What are you?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, it's interesting talking about like things getting messy. I think things are definitely getting messy in the world and getting, you know, messed up. But I was listening to this guy the other day, and he was going, like, he's just written a book, actually a book about non-anxious presence.
Yeah. Is it the breathing?
No, it's not. But it's, Mark Sayers is his name, but he's a Christian guy, and and he was talking about how the last 30 years in Australia and New Zealand so there's probably other parts of the world, but
Yeah.
specifically in Australia and New Zealand, the last 30 years
Yeah.
have been one of the best periods of time in all of human existence to be alive.
Based on prosperity,
based on everything.
or
So,
just everything.
so based on health,
Yeah. Health
life
outcomes.
expectancy,
That's right.
incomes,
Yes.
social support networks,
Got it.
economic opportunity, safety, crime levels, pretty much any measure that you can put in place. We have had an incredible peace.
Yeah.
I mean,
So true, man.
we've had incredible amounts of peace. We've had, and so we're seeing all these things happen. But I do think, the one of the questions for us is how do we still continue to take a viewpoint of our world that is what would be useful for us?
Yeah.
So the question being like, this guy Chris Helder wrote years ago about how positive thinking doesn't really work. Sorry to anyone who thinks positive thinking works, but like if you decide that, hey, today, by the end of today, you're going to be 3 times richer than you are now,
Right.
you just go in the corner and chant it, right? Which we can do after this if you want.
Yeah.
It probably won't happen.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you like break through something, win lotto or rob a bank.
Yeah.
None of which hopefully are going to happen today.
No.
You're not going to, positive thinking doesn't work.
No.
But a useful belief is this idea that, so like with kids, and I think this is really powerful for me as a dad, is I believe that there has never been a better time in human history to raise children than right now.
Yes.
And there's never been a better place than right here.
Yeah.
Because if I am wrong, what's the impact?
Totally
like if I
right.
believe that and then I'm wrong,
the
kids are raised by someone who believes that that I am raising them in the best time ever.
Yeah.
If I'm right, then great.
Totally.
But that's kind of the approach, and it's funny because I think a lot of this comes back to your worldview, right?
Yeah.
And what you believe. Like your
Totally, man.
Your theology, your view of the world and of God, and whether you believe in a God or you don't believe in a God, like your theology is your life because you frame your world around something.
Correct.
And I think I was kind of raised in this tradition where there was almost a viewpoint that the world was going to hell in a handbasket, right? And that our only hope was that at some point there'd be like a superhero return and kind of fix everything. Where in that tradition, there is also this idea that actually we are to bring those things to our world.
Yes.
We are to bring those things to earth.
Yeah.
And I think when we do that in our own kids, I mean, it's an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh man,
like our house, our home, our family is our opportunity. To make it, in my tradition, on earth as it is in heaven.
To create a brighter future.
To create a brighter future.
Yeah. Mate,
that's great. Nice. Right. Yeah, I love it.
It's a good segue.
Yeah.
Not a segue. Listen, I don't know whether we've talked about it before, but I completely agree. And I think what happened during COVID is people felt like the world was ending and retreated.
Yeah.
They're literally like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Go to hell in a handbasket. I'm done, And exactly the opposite is needed from leaders. We can't do that.
No.
Right? And we can't do it at home.
Yeah. The future belongs to the optimists.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like we just know that, right?
Yeah.
Like the people who think that the world is coming to an end will not define our future.
No,
our
they
future.
won't. Well, because they know disengaged.
Yeah, they are.
They're
pulling away.
They can't change anything.
No.
Or they can just set up their family for
apocalypse.
Possibly. That sounds harsh because that sounds really judgmental. But
there's people that do that. I mean, there's bunkers in New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you see that during COVID when people, like billionaires, were building bunkers in New Zealand?
Billionaire bunkers.
But they were building them. They were building billionaire bunkers.
Wow, that'd be a good business strategy.
and bungalows.
Yeah, that's right. At the same time, probably. Well, they would. They'd build their badge and their bunker at the same time. Anyway, that's enough beat. But I agree. So this is not what you're saying. This is not positive thinking.
No.
This is a worldview. And one worldview is the world's ending, world's worse, things are bad, versus reality, which is, we're living longer. We've got more access to medical stuff than ever before. We got less people in slavery. We've got less bad stuff happening. We're safer. No matter how the government tells us to live, can't stop us from loving our kids.
Yeah.
Yet. They haven't made love illegal yet.
Yeah.
And I doubt they ever will.
Yeah.
And so we can just love our living daylights out of our kids, out of our neighbours, out of our businesses.
And even if they do, we still get to, we'll just go underground. I mean, you know, like even if we ended up in some kind of crazy authoritarian regime, we can still create our own.
Well,
you know,
that's why I've started this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's a bit
silly.
silly.
Is this a bunker?
This is a bit, it feels like it.
I thought it was weird when I got in the elevator at ground level and it went down.
Yeah.
For ages.
Yeah.
Like, how far out?
Oh, that's right. Quite a way.
Okay.
But have you noticed that? I reckon podcasts, okay, so people aren't watching mainstream TV. You know, they're switching off mainstream news media, except for our old folks, you know, they can't break themselves away from it. But yeah, I think there's an opportunity here to change the narrative. And part of that is believing in a brighter future.
It is, and for your family. Like, so, and so this applies personally too. So one of the things that Chris Helder talks about with useful belief, believing useful things. Coffee time?
I'm just turning the coffee on.
You just turned it off.
Oh, there we go. Seriously, coffee noise.
It may not even come through. But that's a good test of the mics.
Yeah. Keep talking, mate. I'll make us a shot.
These mics, not this mic.
Yeah.
I do wish my name was Mike though, because then this would be
behind two mics.
Yeah.
Or
something like that. Yeah. But so it applies to parenting as well.
It's working, man.
It is working.
I just got thinking of a brighter future and
coffee. Yeah.
You know, I think we're going to need more than that.
Okay, just pour it again. Yeah. There'll be coffee snobs watching and going,
sorry, coffee snobs.
I think the water spout might have been a better idea.
No. This is beautiful, man.
I can tell which one's yours.
Well, I'm just going to grab the one on the right because it's got more caffeine.
Yeah.
You can get the one that's depraved.
Thank you.
Depraved?
Depraved.
Deprived.
Deprived. But yeah, so one of the, in case the coffee making gets edited out because it was crazy loud and unprofessional, we now have coffee.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. But one of the things that where useful belief applies to parenting is even the concept of, or leadership, is the concept of like, so if I believe that I am actually gifted and called and empowered to be a leader, whether I'm a good leader or not, right? Believing I'm a good leader means I can show up and try and be there for you. Whereas if I believe I'm a crappy leader, then I'm going to show up looking for you to affirm me.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up every day looking for you as the person who works with me to give me feedback to make me feel better.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not about you.
No.
And so even at home, like, you know, if I have a view that I'm a good dad, right? I'm actually more likely to be a good dad. This is what I think anyway. I'm more likely to be a good dad because I have a belief that I'm a good dad than I am if I wake up every morning thinking I'm a crappy dad.
Yeah.
Then I end up with this weird dynamic where I either live that out and I am a crappy dad, or I overdo things that actually create like a weird environment for the kids where I give them all the things that they want, or I spend lots of money on them or something like that. So there's this position of what is the useful belief. Like if I believe this is the best time in human history to raise a child, this is the best place to raise a child, and I'm actually a really good dad, and my kids are great kids because I don't know if you've ever had this with any of your kids. But I and other parents I know have had moments where we honestly look at our kids and go like, are you the worst child in the world? Right? Like,
no kids. I never thought that.
My kids aren't watching this. Or listening to it. No technology from now on.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. There's a good reason to ban technology.
But there are these moments where you're like, are you the worst child in the world? But having a useful belief that actually, even in those moments, to go like, I have a really good kid. You know? And if I find a vape in my kid's shorts, to believe that they are a good kid, that this is just a moment in time. And this goes a long way, right?
Yes.
If your daughter comes home and tells you she's pregnant at 15 and she's a good kid. Like there's no usefulness.
Yeah.
There's no good that comes from going like, oh, well, she's a failure.
Yeah, yeah.
Or worse.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this actually.
Yeah.
Like worse going, oh, now how's that going to make me look as a dad, right? That my kid is. I reckon there's a really big relationship between parents trying to manage how they look because of their kids. So when I go, I'm proud of you, I'm kind of, one of the things I'm also saying is like, you make me look good, right? And if they do something bad, how does that make me look? But what does that do to the parenting relationship?
Yeah, because some kids make you look gooder than others.
Gooder, yeah.
Oh, mate. And hey, you know, for me, like,
I make my parents look amazing.
I know you do. You really do. Yeah, I think, you know, certainly for myself, because of the world that we live in with the parenting stuff we do, you know, I'm very aware of that. But at the same time, I've really come to terms with it.
Yeah.
And to the point where my children's struggles and failures don't define me. And I think we all have to sort of, as parents, get our heads around that. And the moment we make our children feel like a failure, that's the moment we've stuffed up from their perspective. So I think the question you're asking is, does having good children make me more qualified to be a leader? Is that what you're asking? Or?
Yeah, well, sort of. I mean, I think some of the question is what is the impact on the children? Like, even so, if I say, hey, I'm really proud of you, is it worth me going like, what do I mean by that?
Yeah. Oh, you have to.
You know, and is that based on your performance, or is that based on
just them being?
Just them being.
Yeah.
And can I be proud of my kid when they've just done something stupid? You know, like, what does it mean?
I don't know.
What makes you proud about your kids?
I'm proud that they still like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, I can be as big a dick as any other dad. It's natural, isn't it, for our pride in our children to be connected to their performance.
Yeah.
I think that's probably inescapable. What's really hard, we have with our charity, we have this thing which is that we say, you know, we love without an agenda, and we've applied.
I love that.
Yeah, and I use it because I have to tell myself I have to love my children without an agenda. It doesn't matter their choices. It doesn't matter how their ideals diverge from mine. Or what mistakes they make. I'm loving them without an agenda.
So when because you've got some adult kids now, right?
Yeah.
Because you're quite old.
Yeah.
And so when, sorry.
I didn't even hear that as an insult.
Okay, cool.
I was like,
You're like,
what I heard is, you're so wise.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Maybe don't watch this back.
No, yeah, that's right.
But so you've got older kids. Presumably, you know, they don't have the same worldview as you on everything.
No.
And even when it comes to beliefs and stuff, they likely will land in slightly different places and different things.
Yeah.
When you hear something like that, so when you hear a viewpoint that differs from yours, because this is, I think every parent's going to face this, right?
Yeah.
Although I've been watching a show on Netflix about the fundamental Latter-day Saints church.
Right.
And the kids do think the same as the parents, but that's because they've created such a controlling environment.
Yeah.
We don't want to create that,
No,
right? So we want free thinking kids.
Correct.
So when your kids express something that is really, you know, different, or if they did, that's really different to your viewpoint, is your reaction concern or curiosity?
Well, the truth of the matter, I reckon, is that is the most terrifying moment of every parent's parenting journey.
Why do you think we care so much?
We just do, because they're our ideals. It's what we've based our whole life on.
Right.
And then our child expresses a different opinion. And I would have to say that my reaction is to yell and scream at them and to get really angry. And then to realize I've completely cocked it up. And I think most parents are the same. And I think actually it's probably the one thing parents can do to make sure their teens hate them is to not handle their ideals shifting from yours well. What I've done, we've built a whole parenting framework around this, around boundaries, and how one of the we have this thing called BRIGHT boundaries, and BRIGHT stands for the key aspects of setting good boundaries.
I love an acronym.
Yeah, and the I stands for ideals.
Cool.
And so part of what I do with my teen kids is actually have a regular conversation with, how are your ideals shifting from mine, and how is it a problem for you at the moment? And so I have a daughter. I think I'm raising.
That's challenging.
Oh, it is. Honestly, it's massive because it's so massive. Because if we don't nail this, we will have problems with the relationships with our teens. And I think I'm raising a socialist at the moment. And it's a problem it actually is a problem for me.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty convinced that one of my daughters is a raving socialist. And internally, it makes me petrified. But the way I'm dealing with it is bringing myself back to these conversations with her. And actually, there's a conversation I need to have with her at the moment around, because I think it's a generational thing, and I think it's an ideal, it's a socialist thing where if we have a right, we need to exercise it.
Right. Yeah.
And so she's very much at that at the moment where, and I could try to think of some examples, but basically, okay, so here it is. Forgive me if this is too personal. I don't think it is, but we're talking about the dress code, and
the dress code for
life for her.
Right.
No, for the way the actual clothes that they.
Right. Sure.
And man, this daughter, she brought so much wisdom to the process, because we've giving them increasing freedom. You start off when they're baby, you're dressing them entirely, and as they age, they start to choose their stuff. And we've tried to help our daughters be aware of the need to be modest.
Sure.
And a while back, my daughter expressed a need to sort of wear clothes that she knew we would be uncomfortable with.
Which is a desire for freedom too, right?
It is.
Like an expression of freedom. Yeah.
And at that point, it was completely inappropriate for me to tighten the freedoms around her life. So we had to say, hey, yeah, that's cool. You're old enough now, but here's some of the implications. And so where the conversation, and we've circled this conversation back around a few times, and where it went the other day was, well, because I had to talk to her about how men think when they see a woman, and how depraved most of us are most of the time. And so she's thinking, but that's their fault. That's men's fault. I'm going to dress how I want, and that's their responsibility. And so there's a sense there where she's trying to take her, because she has the right now to dress how she wants. She wants to lean into that with full abandon, so to speak. And I think that's fair, but I think there's also like a consideration around, well, just because we have the right to do something doesn't mean we should take that right, because we need to be aware of the implications as well.
It's really interesting. I mean, I guess that's where intent matters a lot, right? Because I do think, I know you'd agree, I think it's one of the tragedies of the way that society works is that we have had to, generationally try and make women responsible for what men think, right?
Yeah.
And that is a tragedy.
It is.
And so do you think, so when I was an electrician,
I forgot you had a real job once.
I had a real job once. When I was an electrician, if a good-looking woman walked past the site, there were lots of noise, lots of like it was still happening. This is like 1990s.
Yeah.
And so there was lots of whistling and calling out and all that kind of stuff. There's probably parts of the world where that still happens. There's probably sites in New Zealand where that still happens. But having talked to my wife and having observed it myself, I think for the large part we've kind of driven that out of society. Like I think most women could walk past a building site now, and that won't happen.
Which is great.
And the guys are probably still looking, but they're not verbally and publicly objectifying. So would you say that there is actually a shift towards, a more open society, a safer environment for women to express how they want to look? And my caveat to that would be, I think intent really matters. Like, because if the intent is because you want to be looked at like that, then obviously that's one thing. Yeah. But if the intent is this is what I want to wear, this is what I feel comfortable in, because sometimes I see that I see that in say my daughter, it's almost hard watching her learn that society has expectations of her. Yeah, because it's a stripping away. I guess what's hard about it is it's a stripping away of freedom. Yeah. Where what I want to be doing, if possible, is building freedom, in my kids. It's helping them become more and more free. But there are some things in society that lead me to almost go, hey, I need to pull you aside now and let you know that you're not as free as you would like to be because of other people. And that's hard, right? Oh,
it is hard. And I don't want people to think that I'm some I have a sense of how women should dress or any of that kind of thing. And to your question, I don't think it is the woman's responsibility how men think. Yeah. Not even for a second. But I think when we do stuff, we need to be aware of just the outcomes of that. Yeah.
How do you? Because you've raised some good boys. Yeah. How do we raise boys to do better?
Yeah. Oh man. Because is it every man's battle? I mean, I know there's a book. I don't know. Is there a book? I've heard the thing. It's every man's battle.
The term. I feel like it. Yeah. I feel like it's like John Bevere or something.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. And most, I guess, feminists would look at most men and go, "We're just cavemen. We haven't evolved." And I get that. Sometimes it feels, and that's why when you have this discussion about, what's the difference between a man and a woman, there's no difference. And I'm going, I think most of us men are going, hell yeah, there's a difference. You don't want to think like us. You don't want to be as depraved as us men. Because I think even the best of men are trying daily to watch their eyes, and to guard themselves. And the rest of men aren't.
And I think it feels like, I don't know what your experience is like, but it feels like there's two modes, right? It all comes down to how close, I feel like it comes down to how close you are to the cliff of viewing people as for your viewing pleasure, right? Yeah. And so I think everybody's capable of doing that. Yeah. And so sometimes you kind of clamber up the cliff, right? And walk along the edge of it, right? And so you're like, I'm good now. And then like you see someone, you're like, and so it becomes this repeating pattern of failure. Yeah. But then there are seasons in life where you just walk a long way away from the freaking cliff, and you go play in a paddock somewhere where you're just not as aware. You're busy, but in a good way. Yeah. Like busy on stuff you are, purposeful about. Yeah. Not just busy. Yeah. Because busyness can have the opposite effect. Yeah. But busy with the right things. You're focused on your family, like genuinely excited about things in your family. You're moving forward. You're engaged with whatever faith tradition kind of centers you, for you and me, like Christianity. Yeah. So you're thinking about God and scriptures and what He might reveal to you about people, and you're seeing people the way He sees them. So there are these moments, and they can last a period of time where you don't think that way, right? And and so I think that's what I'm always wondering with kids, though, is how you have, because it's taken me a long time to learn that, and I feel like a whole bunch of people have tried to teach me things over the years, and I guess that's one of the challenges of parenting is I'm like, I'm aware that have great parents, but I'm also aware that a lot of the stuff they tried to show me, teach me, I couldn't accept it. I couldn't learn it from them at that time. Yeah. Now I hear it and I'm like, oh, that sounds like wisdom. Yeah. My dad used to say, like, you can only spend $1 once. And I was like, I don't think that applies if you're high purchasing things. That didn't work out super well for me.
Yeah.
Whereas now I quote him. I'm like,
Yeah.
you can only spend $1 once. I'm like, oh, open my mouth and my dad comes out, right?
Yeah.
But I would love to know how I create wisdom, how I seed wisdom in my kids in such a way that they don't have to learn it all themselves.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, I've had to learn through hard knocks.
Yeah.
Because I didn't listen, you know. But then I'm not sure my parents could have done anything.
So much of that's life, though. We don't listen to advice.
Yeah, but some do. Like my wife, she right from when she was like in her teens has just had this deep maturity based on like her, you know, the wise people around her and the grounding of her family, and all these sorts of things. And it's taken me literally decades to build that kind of maturity.
You are very immature.
Thank you.
Yeah. And she's a good woman.
She is very good.
I encouraged her and insulted you, so
It's good.
that's good.
I think Julie's great too.
That's good. Nailed it. Nailed the insult back to me. Hey, just going back a step, I think you talked about these periods of time where we do great, and I think we all have these different stress triggers. So for me, based on I think you can probably closely, I don't know whether, have you done Enneagram?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm an 8, which is like something controlling ding dong, I think it is.
Determined.
Yeah.
I'll give you the nice word.
Okay. An active controller, I think, is what 8 is. And I definitely get stressed when I lose control. So for me, when their ideal shifts, that's when I feel like I've completely lost control and my world, it falls apart for just a heartbeat, you know?
Does it make you feel like you've failed?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the biggest mistake I make at that point is if I make them feel like they failed.
Yeah.
And I've done that occasionally as well, you know, and the key to solving that, by the way, is just to circle back around and say, I'm sorry, and to let them know why, and then to have a conversation about what they, you know, what you said and what they said, and actually talk it through.
Yeah. And with curiosity, I think I had a guy I used to work for who used to say that one of his life goals was to not become a grumpy old man. And I think it's one of mine as well.
So true. Me too, man.
Because I have an awareness that it's coming.
All our parents became grumpy old men.
Yeah. And so I think choosing curiosity.
Yeah. Right.
Of going like, why do you think that? Somebody, Andy Stanley said at one point, the more wild the thing was that he heard from his kids, the more he would push in to a response that was like, thank you for sharing, thank you for trusting me with what's inside you. He's like, because my goal of my parenting is to have a relationship with my adult children.
Yes.
So the way that I get there is by you know, and even the way I influence them as they get older is not by trying to correct them. We know that, right? But it's by trying to and almost by being curious. Yeah. Like why do you think that? Tell me more about it. And because this actually kind of comes to one of the most, I guess, one of the current things that parents in our generation are, I suppose, us in the same generation. Do you like that? Anyway, pretty much.
Yeah, that's right.
The parents in our generation are having to deal with, I think, or think through is like we have to be careful not to. I think we have to be careful not to put things in boxes. And so at the moment, one of the big boxes that we put our kids and the world's thoughts into is a big box that says woke.
Yeah.
On the side of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I think a lot of parents in our generation go woke. That's a woke thing. Woke is bad. Yeah. Right? We're undoubtedly, like any movement in human history, any change to the fabric of society has goods and bads. Yeah. Right? And so undoubtedly there will be things that could be characterized as woke that are bad. What's important is that we can acknowledge that some of the things characterized as woke can be good,
Yeah.
right? And so if because I notice this a lot with parents now, I hear us, and I've done it myself, using the word woke like it's a description of something that is like we're almost mocking it, you know? But I think about that from a kid's perspective, and I think about that with my parents. I think about the things that were happening in my generation and how they talked about those. And they actually eroded my trust in that generation of parents. They eroded my view of how they see the world.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that erosion with our kids.
No.
So, you know, I want to go, how do we not put things in the box?
Yeah.
And how do we take a term like woke and go, I'm not going to use that in a negative way.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at each individual thing and form a view. And I'm going to stay curious.
Totally, man. Nobody walks towards a darker future.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
Hey, well, nobody willingly does that.
Yeah.
And the moment as a parent, your view of the future is darker, then you've lost your children.
Well, they don't want to. So when you are the shelter, and you are the food, and you are the pocket money, whatever, they'll keep coming home.
Yeah.
Right. But once you're not anymore, once they've got a car and a job and a house and a family, who are they going to go see? Are they going to go see their friends that they can dream about an exciting future with?
Yeah.
Or are they going to go see their parents who think that the world's going to hell in a handbasket?
Exactly. And it's tricky. You know, I've got a guy in my mind who struggles. He doesn't, when you hang out with him, he barely says a word. He's a good dad. He's involved with his kids, but he doesn't talk. And we all struggle with language and communicate. As a guy, I think we all struggle to communicate. And so I don't want to make it seem like we have to be great communicators to nail this kind of stuff. I think we literally just have to turn up with a positive view of the future. And I think the other thing, you've talked about influence. I think a lot of dads don't see themselves as leaders. And I didn't. I didn't realize what influence I had when I turned up at home. And I think also, so I think empathy is probably very low in my life, as in a strength.
Right.
I've had to focus on building. I think I'm much more aware now when I walk in the room that it's more of an intellectual awareness that when I walk in the room, I know that if I turn up positive, I know that if I turn up with a certain view, that everybody feels better.
Yeah. You lift the room.
Yeah. Now, I don't feel the lift, but I know they feel it.
Yeah.
Because I've done it bad so many times.
Sure.
And I've also learned the power that when I do it, I just completely change the atmosphere. And that as a leader, often I can turn up and either my wife's saying some very negative stuff about things and feeling it, or my work colleagues are, and they're not true. And I have to just take some time, not to say you're not true, but to readjust the atmosphere.
So I think that actually hits on something really important, right? Is how do you create a hopeful environment?
Yeah.
While also maintaining space.
Yeah.
For people who are not experiencing that right now.
Wow.
Because that's
hard, man.
Because we want to lift the room.
Yeah.
But we don't want to lift the room by going, give me all and give me all your stuff. We're gonna sweep it under the rug over there.
Yeah, no.
I'm gonna minimize your experience. And I'm gonna whitewash it, you know, because
well, you know what though? Interesting. And that's such a good question. And I'm not sure this answers it, but that conversation I had with my daughter where she was expressing this real frustration with how men think. Whether she should have let it affect the way she dresses or not. Just being able to talk about it, the room went from her being quite teary and stressed about it to the relationship just came to life again. And it still is a few days later, just from that, me being willing to talk without being defensive. And I think that's people just want to be heard, even if you don't agree with them. And I think what happens is it's a little bit like as we're talking now, when we talk about stuff, our brains actually process it. And it's not that it's not that half the stuff I say I necessarily agree with, but as I process it, I'm like, I actually do think that, or I don't. And I'm trying to And I think our children are doing that right in front of our eyeballs.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And it's one of the things that I find really interesting about like getting to know some kids that have grown up incredibly strong.
Yeah.
So I have a friend Andy, who his parents were probably like the most free parents that, you know, like, you know, he's 15. It's like, oh, you know, there's a party at someone's house. Like, okay, well, you know, what are you going to decide to do? And how did you make that decision? Like, that's the kind of conversations they're having, not like, hey, no, you can't go.
Yes.
And he's growing up with like, I mean, he made some mistakes, but he's just got such an incredibly mature view of the world. And then same with like Sarah. So Sarah, my wife, she'll think back now on some of the things she wore and stuff like that, and the fact that she like dated, you know, a guy when she was like 14 and he was a lot older and all this kind of stuff, and he was like turning up to the house on a motorcycle and things like that.
Has she always been an older man?
Yeah, I'm younger.
Oh, oops. Damn it, that joke failed.
But her parents, even though they were quite strong in their beliefs and quite strong in their worldview, they didn't actually push much of that on her. So they didn't, other than passing comment about midriff or something, didn't make comments about clothing. You know, there was some boundaries around boyfriend and stuff, but really open. But they continued to build into the core of who she was, into her security and her family and herself and her faith. And so there was this maturity building within her to make decisions.
Yes.
And then when she went off to university, she was a strong woman.
Yeah.
And she made great decisions, right? And I get to benefit from a whole bunch of those great decisions in her growth and maturity. So whereas I think often what happens is we're still having those conversations right up to like 17.
Yeah.
And then they're off to university.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of an unraveling.
Yeah.
Right. And we're seeing a lot of that, right? A lot of unraveling at that age. So it's really challenging because for me, I look at it and I'm like, I know my job is to teach and to influence and to coach. But I also know my job is to know when to be releasing, like you were talking about with Jesse, is like, you know, creating more freedom, having meaningful conversation, but not trying to change the outcome, right? Yeah,
because so as a parent, you start with babies and basically or toddlers, and then you set. You're not having conversations. It's all of.
Would you like to touch the oven?
Yes.
Why would you like to touch the oven?
Let's have a talk about this. So there's a whole lot of control.
How many biscuits would you like?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's what parents do. You know, there's just you can parent really soft then, and you don't want to do that. You actually want to soften. You want to move to influence as the kids age, and I think that transition is really hard. And I think the best parents do that best, and maintain a relationship no matter what the outcomes are. And part of that is trying to help our children work out their ideals, not in a judgmental way, but just helping them.
That's huge, right? And the relationship being the primary.
That's it. That's
thing.
Yeah.
I, you know, that's actually been a big. It's one of the areas in which I'm grateful for what could be seen as like broken, but so having being separated and having my kids living with me less than just under half the time, and their mum half the time, just over half the time. One of the things as a dad, like, so everything has a gift in it, right? One of the gifts in that for me as a dad is I lost my illusion of control.
Yeah, right. You had to completely lose it. Right.
So when my kids were, their mum and me broke up when they were, I guess, like 7 and 9 or something. Yeah. And so at that point in time, very different houses emerged. So the house that myself and Sarah, my new wife, have, and their other house are very different houses. Yeah. And because they're very different worldviews, different sets of rules, different whatever, realizing really quickly that actually, if one of my kids turns up and has a wildly different worldview to me, I don't get to just correct them, right? Even at 10, because they go back to another world. Yeah. Now, I don't think that something shifted so much as that I had something revealed to me that most parents miss.
Yeah.
Your kids are always in multiple worlds.
Yeah. That's right.
Right.
Very true.
School is a different world.
So true.
And so
Yeah.
they have two homes.
Yeah.
But so do yours.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So
right.
so does, they've got their friends, and their friends are often more influential than you are anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I think, but having your eyes open to the fact that actually you don't have control over your children's lives ever.
Yeah.
And because control just creates stress, right? I mean,
Yep.
the illusion of control.
Yeah.
And so for me, my kid turns up and goes, I don't believe in this,
Yeah.
and it's a fundamental part of my
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't get to go, well, here, let's go down and see the pastor.
Yeah. Where's the rod?
like literally when
Yeah.
I was an intermediate, I a friend and I sabotaged, that's the wrong word, vandalized something,
Yeah.
and my dad took me to the pastor's house.
Wow.
And
So you could vandalize his place as well?
yeah, and I painted. No, he took me to the pastor's house, and the pastor pastored me,
Nice.
right, to comply
Wow.
again with the
Yeah.
rules of society and not
Yeah.
vandalize things.
Yeah.
And I seldom vandalize things now.
Yeah. It worked, man. That's-
but so I think like my son comes home and tells me that he's
Yeah.
got this different view,
Yeah.
and I don't get to go,
No.
here's what you need to
Yeah.
believe,
Yes.
right? I just have to go. And so if you're not, this is what I found interesting. If you're not going to tell them what to believe, then you're actually only left with one thing.
Mm.
And you'd think that thing might be like telling them what you believe, but actually the first thing is listening.
That's right.
So once we let go of control,
Yeah.
we're led to listening. And so it's like, well, why do you
Yeah.
think that? Well, what have you been thinking? What have you
Yeah.
been learning? And then there's a beauty in any thought structure. I think that's what is
Yeah.
interesting is
Yeah.
like no matter where someone lands, there is a beauty in their thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And because, they're smart, intellectual human beings.
But the moment you listen, they will return the favor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's a conversation.
Yeah. It's a conversation then.
Yeah.
And every child, we're talking about ideals, and what I would say is that every child's ideal dad
Yeah.
is one that they can talk to.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think our goal is to provide a safe place. And what we need to do is look at parenting from the context of, well, when they're safe, when they're young, you're keeping them safe. And somehow there's this really tricky transition to being a safe person to come home to.
Yeah, and realizing that you can't keep them safe. And so, yeah, you'll just be the place they can run to.
Yeah.
Without shame. Right?
Yeah. And honestly, we cocked it, like I cock that up all the time. So I think that's a tricky thing. We all do this wrong. And
Yeah.
and I think then the thing is remembering to make it right,
Yeah.
to circle back around later and go, hey, I responded. And I just did this to one of my boys recently where he said something that just wound me up. And what I had to realize, it wasn't what he said, it was the way he said it.
Yeah.
And it took maybe a couple of hours for me to realize actually there's a little bit of element of truth in there.
Right.
And maybe there's more truth than I'm seeing. And just to go back around and go, hey, listen, I responded really badly. And I should not have. Because if you don't, you lose, the relationship breaks down. He realizes very quickly that I'm actually not a safe place. Yeah.
Do you know, one of the things that I think it reveals as well in us is the things you know the most about. Where, like, I don't know about for you, but for me, there's not a lot of things where I actually have a real depth of knowledge, right? I have little bits of knowledge of lots of things.
Yeah.
And but those things where I have a massive amount of knowledge, I'm not particularly controlling, and I'm actually quite open to conversation because I'm not insecure about my thought, right? And so I'm happy to listen to someone else's.
Yeah.
It's the areas where I am maybe scared that I'm not going to be able to have an answer or something. Those are the areas where I feel threatened. And those are the areas where I respond poorly. And because, the question I try and keep in mind, because I've been asked this before, because I've been through a real journey of like different. I've held really, like I held really strongly traditionally religious views.
Yes.
Really, really, really strongly.
Yeah.
And held them like clenched fist.
Yes.
And then I went to holding like all of that's wrong, and people who are like that, are the problem.
Yeah.
And I held that with a really clenched fist.
Yeah. That's right.
And so I like went from one fundamentalism to another.
Yeah.
And then learnt that actually the goal is to try and open your hands.
Yes.
Because then you can be with people.
Yeah.
But in that process, for me, one of the big questions that a friend asked me was, he said, we were having an argument, right? And he was like, so how much of the knowledge in the universe do you think that you have?
Right.
And I was like, I don't know. And he goes like, let's say you've got 1%. And I immediately went like, I know I don't have 1% of the knowledge in the universe, right?
That's right?
Obviously.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, let's say you have 1%. If you have 1% of all the knowledge in the universe, is there any chance that in the other 99% there is something that would change your mind on this? And I was like,
yeah,
of course there is. But if we can get that mindset about things, then there's no topic, there is no conversation, there is no principle, worldview, belief. There is nothing that we shouldn't be curious about, because we don't know. Like, we don't even have 1% of the knowledge about anything.
Yes.
So therefore, if my son comes home and he's got a wildly different view on something to me, I should be willing to listen and learn and be curious. Now, chances are, because I'm so right on most things, chances are, once I've heard him, I will talk through what I think, and I'll come away still thinking what I think, right?
Yeah.
It won't change my mind. But I should at least be curious.
Yeah.
And it interests me because I come from faith tradition, so do I. That is the tradition. Like if, we look at, at Jesus, that's what he did, right? He asked questions all the time. So what do you think? People would come to him and go like, what do you think about blah, 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 blah? And he'd be like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's right. Ask a question. And I think when you say being curious, are you meaning it's how you turn up. It's that idea of I'm positioning myself to listen and to be curious about what you're feeling.
I actually desire to know. So, one of the things that Andy Stanley says once about people who have different beliefs or views to you, the goal is not to change their mind or change yours, right? So if you let that go as the goal, then what is the goal? The goal is actually that you might understand each other's view. Yeah. Well, you don't have really any control over whether they'll understand yours. Like they've got to want to. Yeah. So they've got to ask you questions.
Yeah.
The only thing you actually have control over in that situation is your ability to understand theirs. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So the goal of the conversation doesn't become to convince anybody of anything. The goal of the conversation becomes, I'm not here to change my mind.
Yeah.
But I want to get to the point where I understand why you think what you think.
Yeah.
And if I get to that point, then I've had a good conversation.
Yeah. And I think that is actually some of the hardest stuff to do.
It's incredibly hard.
Especially when your teenagers are starting to express some opinions around life, and that is very different. And so you were talking before, and I think you just lost all the fundamentalists that are watching this, that, there's a sense of,
there's other podcasts.
Yeah, there's other podcasts. I'm not going to give up what I believe, and there is a truth and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think you nailed it right in the sense that it's posturing yourself to listen. Yeah. Because if you're not listening, then you're not caring. Yeah. And kids want to know that you care. Yeah. And somehow you have to listen, hold your beliefs, but listen. And to do that, you have to posture. I think what you're saying is you have to posture yourself with a sense of curiosity.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes the path to connection, and potentially even the path, say with a kid, because with other adults, we can't start with the perspective of trying to change their minds.
Mm.
With our children, we are trying to have influence, and so we may actually be hoping that they will find their way to the health, what we would consider to be a healthier view, right?
Yes.
And so, but often the secret to that is actually still, it's not based, the secret is not in my worldview. It's in theirs.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I can listen and find theirs, then I might be able to help them move from there.
Yeah.
Like, so, the example being, like, in the early kind of Christian tradition, Paul goes into Athens and everybody believes all sorts of different things. And he obviously has a belief system he would love for them to believe.
Yeah.
And so he goes to speak to them, and he goes like, I saw you've got you're obviously very spiritual people. So he says, like, you've got lots of different, altars to different gods.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, good on you, like you're not just all about the here and now.
Yeah.
But then he's like, I saw one that was said to an unknown God.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's who I'm here to tell you about.
Yeah.
Right. And so he used something that already existed in their story.
Yeah.
There was a listening posture, curiosity. He used something that existed in their story to help them understand a wider story.
Yeah.
And I think, when I listen to my son, that's what I want to understand.
Yeah.
Like if he tells me that he doesn't believe something that I think is, central, then I want to understand how he got there, why he got there, what's happening in his story.
Yeah.
Really, I guess part of it as well is lending lots of credibility to the fact that he is a human being.
Yeah.
And he is experiencing a life, because I think that's where, when we look back at our childhoods, the times that were most violating were the times where we were treated like children.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
And the most empowering moments, and then probably the moments where we listened the most, were when somebody talked to us like we were an adult.
Yeah.
Like when you were 11 and trying to form a worldview on something, and your parents are going like, Mike, you need to think this.
Yeah.
They didn't hold a lot of influence with you.
No.
But if you'd gone, if someone, and I think about like a guy in my church growing up, Jack Jones. Do you remember Jack Jones?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So he had a little convertible, and we'd like go to a car show or something like that. He's just one of those really nice guys.
Yeah.
He would talk to me like I was an adult.
Yeah.
He'd be like, what do you think about da-da-da-da? And I learned from him because he was willing to have a conversation with me, not be instructive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, James. I think I default. I don't do the curiosity thing well.
It's hard.
Yeah. So
It's scary.
Yeah. I think I will try that more. I think I default just to apologising later. For the sense.
And to be fair, so do I. I mean, one of the reasons that curiosity is top of mind is because I'm constantly like, frick, James.
Yeah, got to do it better.
I'm curious.
Right?
With my wife as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And friends. And,
I did a post recently. It was a little bit satirical. It was how to cancel your teenager. Was the title. And I think
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I got some really good feedback on it. I think why people liked it is because, cancel culture is all the thing at the moment, and the way I know my kids feel cancelled is if I don't value them enough to circle back around and apologise for when I disagree with them, or and I think the whole world at the moment is we're just cancelling people left, right, and centre. Yeah, and actually, it's not all right to have. It's no longer okay to have an ideal that's different to mine. I mean, COVID was all about that, eh? It was this massive divide between what we thought about stuff.
Funny though, because you're right. I mean, one of the things. So there's two kinds of cancelling, right? There's ones where people actually screw up, and then there's ones where we just have different views.
Yes, so, we cancel people when they make a mistake.
But on that, I feel like my observation would be we cancel people when they make a mistake and they apologize badly, right? Because we don't see a lot of good apologies, right? Yeah. So, and we've talked about like Will Smith previously, but like when he did what he did, he didn't apologize straight away. He got up and gave a speech that kind of was centered around him and how he felt and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then when he said he did an apology like a couple of days later, it was just, a little bit of a platitude. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't, and I think there's a lot of that. There's
Yeah.
a lot of cancel. And whereas what I have seen a couple of examples where someone was at very real risk of being cancelled,
Yeah.
but they apologized really well.
Yeah.
And it disarmed it.
Yeah.
But probably the more problematic one, and maybe the one you're talking about more, is where no one did anything wrong. We just have different views.
Different views, and because your views are different, I will slam you on social media, or I just sort of write you off.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is so it's typically around ideals or mistakes, and the mistake thing is very subjective. So as to what a mistake is. So for example, you can choose to be a girl today, and that's okay. But if you choose to be with another girl today, that's not your wife. That's not okay. So the acceptable mistake, or the acceptable moral judgment today is for you to, I identify as a girl. That's fine, but you can't go off and be with another girl today. That's still not fine.
Right.
And I don't. So we cancel people based around our ideals.
Well, which is interesting because that's, I guess that's drawing a line though between societal view and actual impact. So the impact on my wife would be pretty significant either way.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's only deemed a mistake if you have an affair. You can do a whole lot of other stuff.
And is some of that because if I have an affair,
yeah,
we're both she's the victim.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was to go, I actually am a woman, then she's a victim of that. But there's an understanding that I must be a victim of that too because I'm kind of in the wrong body. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that how people would view it?
That's probably it. I haven't been able to work it out. I haven't quite understood that one yet because, we definitely, society everywhere, if a man sleeps around, that's you married it, he's cocked it up, he's gone, that's an unforgivable mistake. Do not make space for that man. He's cocked it up, And so I've got some mates that I should probably cancel on that basis. But if you decide to be a trans man, then it's all sweet. But that's equally as difficult on
unless you look in a social construct like, say, church.
Yeah.
Because
either one's unacceptable.
Yeah,
I guess.
Like you would.
God still hates you both ways.
I think you mean loves.
I love you. Sorry. Oh, it's just we that hate you.
But that is the problem, right? It's like, and actually, gosh.
Are we going?
No, what you're making me realize is that the irony is that we're talking about cancel culture.
Yeah.
Like it's this new thing.
Yeah.
But actually the church has been perfecting cancel culture for hundreds of years.
Oh man.
And I think as people who come from that background and current space, that should be a challenge to us. That the church should be a place where it should be the safest place to make mistakes.
Totally agree.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not. And so, so I actually think the church talks, because the church is, what's actually shifted is that the church has become, and Christians have become, one of the subjects of cancel culture.
Yeah.
Whereas the church historically has been more comfortable being the judge, jury of cancel culture.
Yeah, that's so true.
and it's losing control because society is like, actually, no, we have different viewpoints now. We're separated.
Yeah.
But that should be a lesson for us. How do we create a safe environment for people to make mistakes? How do we create a safe environment for people to have different views? We go to a church where they say, you don't have to agree with us to be with us. You don't have to believe what we believe to belong. How do you make that true?
Yeah.
Because it's sort of true, but if somebody forms a wildly different view, or somebody, doesn't agree on fundamental things, key things, then they probably don't feel like they belong.
It's so hard to get it right, because you got people know they've made a mistake, or their partners had an affair, they still feel the shame of that.
Yeah.
Feel the shame of their relationship failing, and that their perfect life has fallen over. And then you got different relationships going on with, maybe the wife still wants to be friends, but it's hard to be friends with a guy and all that sort of messy stuff. I think it's super tricky.
And making, I guess the question becomes whether it's at work as a leader, or at church, or at home. How do you make love the central narrative, right? Because it's so that it's not about wokeness. It's not about what you wear. It's not about sexuality. It's not about belief or worldview. The central theme is love and acceptance of the other.
Yeah.
And everything else becomes secondary. Some really important things there,
Yeah.
but they're secondary.
Yeah.
And they become the things that we learn from each other about. Because, gosh, I think at our best we want to learn, right? We want to be learners. We don't want to, we don't want to stop and go, cool, got it now.
Yeah.
Right. What's something you used to believe that you don't believe anymore?
Well, quite a bit. I think
You're probably going to offend someone now, but go for it.
No. We were talking about it before. I genuinely had a worldview that was taught to me in a traditional church setting, which was that the world is ending and we're all going to hell in a handbasket. And I struggled with it.
Yeah.
I questioned it in my head. I run it around and couldn't make sense of it.
Yeah.
I completely don't believe that at all now. My son, who's going to edit this YouTube video and this podcast, is going to struggle with my answer. But that's the thing, is I've got a great relationship with him, and we sit on different planes on this. And it's a fundamental driver by the reason we engage. Because if I believe that, then I'm going to disengage from the world. But instead, actually, I think, no, I have to engage to make the world better. And so I'm holding a belief that I could be wrong with, and I'm quite happy if I'm wrong, that actually we have an opportunity to make the world better, and that what we do here on earth matters for eternity. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that not everything good that happens in the world means that everything is exclusively getting better, and not everything bad that happens means everything's exclusively getting bad.
No.
Because if we look back at history, there's no rosy.
No.
Like there's always hard things and there's always good things. But you have to believe that there are people who lived through World War I and II.
Yeah.
And the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And the 1918 pandemic.
Yes.
Like that was their life.
Yeah.
There are people who lived and died in that time.
Yeah.
A number of them will have had really crappy lives.
Yeah.
And a number of them will have had great lives.
Yeah.
Some of them in the same town.
Yeah.
With the same opportunities and the same whatever.
Yeah.
Because some chose to believe that it was a good time to be alive.
Yeah.
Despite all of that.
Yeah.
And some believed that they could make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And some believed that they were just, the world was falling to pieces.
Yeah.
And they probably thought it was, the end times
Yeah.
and it was all of these different things. And I think that's the point, right? We're here for a time.
Yeah.
So
who's what's the name of the guy who fought slavery?
William Wilberforce.
Wilberforce. Do you think William Wilberforce stood there and thought, man, this place is getting worse? Or do you think he was thinking, man, we can make
it better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was slavery.
Yeah.
Like that was bad.
Yeah.
And thank God for people like him who thought, no, we can make it better.
And there was a lot of uncurious, if that's a word, not curious, incurious.
Yeah.
Uncurious people.
Yeah.
Even in the faith communities, church communities back then, that saw what was happening as bad.
Yeah.
And there was ones that saw it as good.
Yeah.
And so, simultaneously you've got, and I think this is the challenge with church stuff, is that it always sits on the right, on both sides of everything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so there was church people trying to keep slavery in place,
Yeah, that's
and there was
right.
church people
Yeah.
trying to abolish it.
Yeah.
And and the point is that some people had an optimistic view of the future,
Yeah.
and some people had a pessimistic view of the
Yeah.
future. And there are things happening in the world right now that are really positive for reducing human suffering. And there are things that I just found out this morning that and this was even complete news to me, but a whole bunch of like something like 60% of the food that goes into poor African nations through aid organizations comes from Ukraine.
Right.
Because Ukraine's like the food basket of Europe, right?
Yeah.
And so the war, one of the unknown kind of unseen impacts of the war is it's causing these massive famine risks in Africa.
Yeah.
And so there are horrible things happening.
Yeah. There are. But again, I would say what's needed is for more leaders to step up and to step in. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this guy was talking, he was a scientist, and he was talking about how there's no straight lines on Earth.
Wow.
And that we tend to, when we look at growing our businesses, we tend to do this forecast thing where we do the graph and it goes up like this, sales are going like that.
Yeah.
And then we all know when we look back on time and our graphs are like this.
Yeah, totally.
And so we expect life just to be better, but they don't. There's issues and there's downs and then ups.
And there's lessons all the way through.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody said once that they never envy someone with a quick rise to significance.
No, yeah.
Because all of those dips, typically you're going to get them all.
Yeah.
So if you dart from here to here, then this is platform, right? Because when you're a CEO, when you're a leader, even when you're a dad, when you become a parent, then you're on a platform.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you have this moment. I don't know when this moment happened for you, but I had this moment when my kids were, I think my son was 5, where I was literally sitting on the beach processing stuff from my childhood.
Yeah.
As an adult.
Yeah.
Still do.
Yeah.
Literally just remembering things, thinking through things.
Yeah.
Still processing my childhood.
Yeah.
And then I realized my son was having one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like,
wow.
Oh no,
Yeah.
this is terrible.
I'm a dad.
This poor kid. So there's a platform that you have as any kind of leader.
Yeah.
And that platform is not where you want to be learning those lessons, right? And so I think the longer term journey to significance, the journey through parenting. And you would have probably heard this before, but I don't know who said it, but somebody talks about how you can't really effectively parent without reparenting yourself at the same time. Yeah. Like part of the process of parenting is that you're parenting your children and reparenting yourself. And that's if you miss that opportunity, then you miss out. Yeah. And so do your kids.
That's so true. Every parenting program is not about, it's not like it says, okay, you tell your children this.
Yeah.
And they will become better children. It's actually all about being a better parent. And I think what you've touched on there, if we were to sum up today, just to finish, because we've talked for way too long, is realizing that we all turn up as, we all have influence. As a separated dad, you have influence. It's pretty much the only thing you have, really. Once you've...
I certainly don't have control.
Yeah. Yeah. When the kids are young, it's all about a sense of that if you look at it from providing a safe place, and the whole world feels unsafe at the moment. Talking about a brighter future, we're not saying it feels frigging bright at the moment. It does. There's moments when you think, what the heck's going on? This place feels broken as. But if we aim to provide a safe places at work, can the people feel safe to turn up in your workplace? Or do they feel like they can't have an opinion there? And are your kids feeling like that's a safe place to turn up at home? Does your partner feel safe to turn up? I think the whole world feels unsafe. And as leaders at the moment, I think what we've kind of been skirting around is we need to try to really focus on providing safe places.
Yeah, and a bright vision.
Yeah, and a bright vision.
Yeah, and there was a study a couple of weeks ago about businesses that said that one of the defining traits of a successful leader is not optimism.
Yeah.
It's not that they're optimistic.
Yeah.
It's that they're not pessimistic.
Right.
And so I think optimism tends to, be more the sort of thing that extroverts do and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And having a bright vision is good.
Yeah.
But it's not just about optimism. It's about not being pessimistic.
Yeah.
If we have a pessimistic view of the future, I think we are ineffective leaders.
Yeah.
And I think we will lead people. If they follow us, we'll lead them straight into a pessimistic future. But if we can...
Yeah, that's so true. They will, unintentionally, unwittingly. And the challenge then for us dads and for us leaders is to find a positive vision, a brighter vision. And the only thing I would say there in finishing is not just to feel like you have to have this, to find this clarity. Sometimes you're leading and you don't really have a vision. It's not like you've got this clear picture of the future. It's just that you're believing in better.
Yeah.
And that's enough at the moment, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long is that?
Yeah, it's far too long.
Yeah.
But hey, we're so that's I'm just going to sum up. James, I think it was really good. We talked far too long on our first podcast. I'll forgive you for that.
Just break it up into 10 sections and season 1 is done.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's been with Mike and James. James is actually an HR consultant, one of the few men in my life that I let speak into my life because he always got something smart to say. So thanks for that, James.
Thank you.
So he just go on, lead where it matters, hold a bright vision for your family, at work, keep believing.